get them. So let's have an example. So we'll run through an example. So you've got to come up with some assumptions. But what are your reasonable assumptions? So what do you know? So let's take the manufacturing example. So let's say at the moment it takes you 1 hour to produce whatever piece of product it is. But with this new piece of equipment, it's going to take you 1 minute or 5 minutes. So what do you know? What I know right now is in 10 hours I can produce 100 pieces of this product. But with this piece of equipment, I can produce 100 pieces in 1 hour. So I'm going to increase my efficiency by 10 times. So this is what I know. So now we're starting to get to some actual specific figures. So then, right, so we've increased our revenue therefore by 900%. If we can sell all of the products, and that is something you should be addressing in your explanation about your market research, your project need. So if we can sell all of these products, we now have much better capacity to produce them, so we could increase our revenue by 900%. So we've got some figures here. So if we're looking at sustainable jobs objective, so then we put in there and we say, well, we're going to increase our revenue by $500,000, for example. So based on what you've just done, you've said, I know I'm going to increase how much product I produce by this amount, and you know your prices for your products, so that's going to increase your revenue by this amount. Based on that figure, how many jobs do you think you're going to need? Or you may work it out a different way. You may say, well, in order to do this, I need 2 more jobs in the factory. I need 2 more jobs in logistics. I need 2 more jobs in this area. You may figure it out that way. But however you work it out, you just have to have a basis for how you are working out what is making you think that this is realistic, because it's got to be achievable. That's part of our SMART. It's got to be achievable. So use those calculations to figure out what number of staff you expect. So then you're expecting to increase manufacturing jobs. The time frame is within 1 year after the project's completed. How will you measure it? Well, you're going to measure the number of additional staff that you hire into the company, and your target is 10 FTE, 20 FTE, whatever your target is in terms of full-time equivalent jobs. So that's how you would answer that question. Then you would look at it and go, okay, well, let's look at the construction phase. We're actually going to need to construct a shed. We're going to need to purchase the equipment, etc., install it. So there is going to be a construction phase. While we're actually doing the project, we are going to create some jobs for the region. So let's look at how many of those we're going to create. Well, what do you need to do? Go back and look at your project description as to exactly what you're doing. Go and speak to the people that you've got the quotes to and speak to them. So how many FTE are you going to need to do this? Have an estimate. Look at what your project is going to do and estimate how many jobs are going to be required to do it. Remembering it's full-time equivalent jobs. So you may have 50 people working on the project, but they're all only doing 5 hours or so. So have a look at what that equates to then in terms of a full-time equivalent job over the life of the project, and that's your figure. So then we can look at another of the grants, the RED grants objectives that it meets. Well, it certainly meets expanding or diversifying industry, because we're expecting your revenue to increase by 900% or $500,000 or whatever it is that your revenue is going to increase by. So that is an additional $500,000 per year that's coming into that industry. So it's certainly expanding that industry. And it's diversifying your ability to access all those other markets and to feed all those other markets. So that is another RED grant objective that you are meeting. So you would look at that and say, okay, well, that's your figure. You know how much extra you've estimated you're going to bring in. Your expected outcome is new product going over east, or a new product. It could be that it's a completely new product that you're producing with this equipment as well. So the piece of equipment may not just be allowing you to go over east, it may be allowing you to create a new product. So that would be one expected outcome, is a new product produced. And then when? As soon as project's completed or within a year? How long does it take to produce this new product? How will you measure it? Okay, well, so you're going to measure it by the number of products that are manufactured in that year and the number that are sold within that year. And what's your target? You are aiming to sell X number of dollars of that product. Another one of your expanding industry is purely just the money that you're going to be bringing in. So increased sales. Increased sales of whatever it is that you guys sell. Access to new markets is something as well. So you're being able to access interstate markets. So that's another way that you're expanding your industry, is all of a sudden you're able to expand to access these new markets. And then look at, okay, well, I'm going to access these new markets. What's the time frame? Within a year. Soon as it starts, you're going to hoping to access them. How will you measure it? You're going to measure it by the number of over East clients that you get. You're going to measure it by the number of over East sales that you get. And then your target, how many clients am I hoping to get to? Or how many products am I hoping to sell, dollars worth of sales am I hoping to get over East? So these are ways of addressing that question, just some examples for you. Now, these may be the only two objectives that you meet, the only two objectives met, but you've come up with 3 or 4 outcomes. So you've come up with your sustainable jobs on an ongoing basis and your sustainable jobs from a construction period basis. You've come up with expanding industry because you might be creating a new product. You've come up with expanding industry because you're accessing new markets and selling the existing product to new markets. So that's the way to answer that table, which people have had problems with. It really is just a factor of you need to look at what do you currently know? So what do you currently know about things and what you're hoping it's going to change? Now, it's a target, so please remember that it's a target. It must be achievable. Don't be unrealistic and aim for something that you know you're not going to achieve, because these targets will be in your grant agreement. So if you are successful, it will be put into your grant agreement that this is what you're targeting and you're trying to achieve. So don't be crazy unrealistic. At the same time, you are not going to be penalised if you aim and your target is 10 FTE and you only hire 8. You're not going to be targeted because you'll be able to explain, well, this was the target, we didn't quite reach it for these reasons. So make sure that you are aware that these targets go into your agreement, so be realistic.